Awesome. Alrighty. Well, guys, welcome back to the Brotherhood podcast. It has certainly been a while since I jumped on here and super excited to get this up and running, as I had so many people contact me about where's this podcast gone. And for me personally, it was just shifting my focus and coming back now from a new aligned place. And I'm so glad to welcome Mr. Leigh Tyson here today, or Tyr, which is his Viking name.
That's it.
He's an amazing friend of mine, guys, with an extremely broad and I would say like depth of knowledge and experience within business, within life. So Leigh, thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you for your kind words, brother. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I know we were touching a little bit beforehand about the topic of delving inward, and well, just giving a bit of a background to anyone who obviously hasn't heard of yourself before. How would you, I guess, broadcast your truth to the world?
Yeah, I think well, the irony is, I guess, I feel like I've been speaking my truth all my life. And what I guess I mentioned to you before is that, you know, I'm sort of approaching middle age. I think in my youth, I was busy with my business. You know, I was busy, and so there wasn't much forward reflection or introspection. It just was, and so I had a beautiful, colourful life, and I feel very grateful for that. And I found myself in what I have thought for a long period of time as being sort of a random path. But in terms of speaking truth, and that is as I guess one of the themes for today, I have been speaking my truth in all kinds of different guises and ways, and it probably comes back to me as a human. You know, I believe that I have a kind heart, and I've always taken great joy in passing knowledge on and helping people out. And so we kind of look at our assets, I suppose. And the irony is with my colourful life and business pursuits and careers is that I've used my mind, my social intelligence, and my ability to communicate and articulate to my benefit. But as I said, that's come in different shapes and forms, and I didn't see the pattern until quite recently. And quite recently, it is nothing like a bit of adversity in your life.
Yeah.
For the goalposts to completely shift on you, for you to start looking from the outside in, or at least looking beyond your kind of bubble, I suppose. And that's when things kind of started to change and the focus started to get far more real and pointed, I guess.
That's beautiful, man. And I really resonate with what you're saying there, because it's almost the aspect that, you know, and I can only speak from my perspective, but that the more experience you get, the more you realize also what you do want, and then also what you don't want, which then affords you, I guess, that space or that, inner understanding of speaking into existence your truth.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting you should say it that way. I think in my humble journey, understanding what you don't want is sometimes more important.
Yeah.
It's a real good way of working out where you're exactly at with things. I mean, all along though, if you just take a little bit of time with it, like if I was to think of what I've just said to you, the colourful life, the randomness of it all, and the amazing adventures I've had, is it almost one of constant change by design. I mean, I absolutely friggin' thrive on change. I mean, look at the state of me, you know, like I'm a little bit different and have been all my life. I'm kind of the black sheep of my family, and I'm known as being kind of the random interesting one within my friend groups. But the undertow, I think, all along with the change, maybe it spurred all of the frequent change, was this sort of feeling of being a bit lost at the same time. So, you know, with a bit of reflection, just talking to you now, brother, it's like being busy with that and just moving forward without too much introspection or sort of reflection on where you're heading. I think if I was to be honest, a lot of that was, without me realizing, trying to change the situation to reach a point of more fulfillment or being more on point with my truth or living my truth, I suppose. So it's funny how I guess the subconscious may have been driving I've been in the workforce now for, 27, 28 years, right?
Yes.
It's, and these things are only just sort of coming to me in the last sort of two or 3 years. It's quite beautiful.
No, I'd love to ask, because what do you feel was the moment? Because obviously, as you said, there's a colourful life there, and I've obviously heard, I wouldn't say, obviously all of it, but I've heard some of it from spending some time with you. And what would you say is the moment that you decided that you were going to turn inwards?
Oh, that's a beautiful question, brother. I can tell you exactly when. In fact, I've got goosebumps just thinking about my response. Back on sort of the goalpost being shifted, circumstances sort of coming to bear that having you needing to think differently or evaluate differently, nothing like adversity, my man, right? So I had what I would call a triple whammy shitstorm. I had a very successful business that was heading in completely the opposite direction to the previous 3 or 4 years before that. So it was tanking. There was very contentious stuff between myself and business associates and partnerships. At the same time, that was ruining me financially to an extent. I carried the burden of that being sort of the male and the typical sort of archetype there is that, I support everybody in my family tree financially and on many other fronts. So I felt the pressure just crushing down on me. I was having health issues at the time. And I got to this point one morning where it was kind of like a slow burn. I thought that I was only just sort of coping with all of these curveballs and shit situations until I got to the point where I was driving to the train to take the train to the city to have yet another meeting that would involve lawyers and your behavioral psychologists. So it's like, and I'm driving to the station and I'm and being open and honest with your brother, I'm in a dark space. I'm there at the traffic lights and I'm thinking, shit, I saw a semi-trailer coming. And I thought, yeah, okay. One way to stop all of this is to just put my foot down, man, and drive out in front.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a tiny moment, man, where I was very, very serious about doing that. Just hovering there at the lights are red, semi-trailers coming around the corner to merge on the highway. And then something flipped inside me, man. And I just went, no, man, no, there has to be a way out of this. And so I chose not to do what I thought I was going to do. True to form for me, man, it's like, well, I've made my mind up. I'm going to take on the challenge. And so I started almost immediately thinking completely outside the box. And the circuit breaker that same day was actually involving other people outside the mix for help and support, because I hadn't really done a lot of that up until that point. I kind of felt like I needed to solve it all for myself. And so, yeah, the old problem shared, the problem halved is probably an understatement to an extent, because with that comes the kindness of real support, and with real support comes some options that you can't think of. Because when you're in that situation, and it was a situation that had built up probably over about a 12-month period prior, is that you lose the capacity to use your strategic mind. So whatever thoughts you're having about being trapped or being able to potentially get out of it is bullshit. Most of the time, the brain you're burnt out. The circuits are broken. So you then end up sort of feeling even more hopeless. Yeah. And so just some kind words and some guidance from somebody, it gave me enough to hook on to something to, I guess, sort of move in a different direction. A pretty profound point in my life. I mean, I would put it up there with, I'm the proud father of 2 girls, 2 beautiful little girls. I'm a loving and supportive husband to my beautiful wife. But the birth of children for me, as anybody that's a parent out there, man, that was next level shit, man. Because all of a sudden the world's not just about you.
Yeah.
And you've created something which is profoundly awesome, and certainly not you in the sense you create an echo that is going to head off in a positive direction, hopefully. So yeah, that was the next most significant point in my life, was that one.
That's beautiful, man. Thank you so much for sharing. And I feel like there's so many powerful nuggets there. I'd love to ask, like, so obviously that was like a shift, because there's so many people in that moment, I suppose we've all had moments like that, for sure. And what would you say was the biggest lesson from that moment onwards that you received, in even coming out of that situation to where you are now?
Yeah, that's another great question. Thank you, my brother. It's well, these things, they're like layers, right? So you're dealing with the immediate, so it's a bit tactical thinking to begin with, and then it becomes more strategic. And then as you get yourself out of that and head in the right direction, it kind of, there's more layers to it. I think the bit that got me out of it in the early stage, when it was quite raw, was the fact that I had a choice, and that the fact, so there's two parts to it, I suppose. One was this bullshit feeling of trapped and there being no other option is a full bullshit feeling, and it is bullshit logic in actual fact. So I kind of looked at myself and went, I felt like I've needed to stay part of the game, and the game's not working. So it was the power that comes with saying I can just simply make a choice to take myself out of the cauldron, right? And then I guess it flips around to this darkness, this dark thought process, this adversity. It's horrifying in the sense that it's like an ever decreasing circle. It's quite suffocating, I should say. Because you find yourself thinking about all the things you don't have, thinking about all the things that are wrong, thinking about blaming yourself and blaming others, and it has a snowball effect. So the breakthrough, what I'm talking about, that helped get me out in the rawness afterwards, was really flipping that the other way around. What am I grateful for? I got a beautiful kids, beautiful wife. None of that was a problem at the time. I mean, my God, I got enough there just on its own, right? Love around me, good friends, some friends, offering amazing support. And when you're really down and out, there's never a truest thing about people saying you find out who your friends are.
Yeah.
I did. And some people really disappointed me, and some people I didn't think would be there were there in spades. So it was beautiful in that sense. But to answer your question, it was really focusing on what I'm grateful for and what is working. And that gives you like that kind of bit of a life buoy to hang on to and build from on that front. And I guess the other point was just choosing to take myself out of the game.
They're beautiful. And I love how what you said there as well, because obviously we're in the same community now, which is an amazing community that like it's where Ken, as you would say,
that's it. Yes.
and really tying in with what you're saying, because obviously that's extremely powerful, your story that you're saying, and really honoring you, man, for coming out of that situation, because I know many people wouldn't have.
100%.
I feel like the value of like authentic community, and let's say as men, and obviously I'm heading into my mid-20s now, so I'm just really forging into manhood at the moment. But from my understanding, and even from what I've gone through myself, is there can be that nature to go the lone wolf. And even like I would say to myself, oh, I'm not going the lone wolf. But when I reflect, even recently, I came to understand, well, actually, in some aspects, I very much still was. And maybe there are some aspects where I still am. And that's okay. But I feel there's definitely a shift going on in terms of that. It isn't weak to ask for help, and it's actually true strength, because actually one of the mottos for Brotherhood is that together everyone achieves more. And
100%.
That's team, so what would be your perspective on, say, even coming out of that situation, and with the community we have around now, and then even with the stigmas maybe you also grew up with, what would you say to maybe a gentleman who's maybe similar age to yourself or in this similar situation to what you were in regards seeking assistance?
Oh man, I love the beautiful flow here, brother. That's awesome. I mean, it comes back to your other beautiful question a few minutes ago, where these layers of understanding. I'm some 4 years down the track from what I'd shared with you, and life's pretty bloody good, and possibly better than it was ever before. The thing which I've come to realize now with strength and with an air gap on where I had got to, and this introspective and this idea of looking for a different way, different paths to travel, is that I then start to look at the lessons retrospectively that got me to that point of adversity, the patterns within that, if you like. And certainly from a bloke perspective, it was down to that lone wolf thing you're talking about, man. Like, I'm a 70s baby. So, and I grew up in rural New Zealand. There's a warrior culture as well in terms of Māori and Polynesian influence heavily and so there's this great, this great indoctrination you get into all the old-fashioned values that sometimes don't serve men particularly well. I also left home at 17 and forged my own way in the world, which included travel as well, and included travel extensively since. And never really asked anybody for help at all along the way. And so there's pride that comes in that, of course. There's ego for sure. But I think to answer your question, I've realized that true potential actually comes from tribe, from community. And this has actually only been a fairly recent breakthrough for me, and in part, but not completely, to do with this beautiful community on how you and I met each other, I suppose, and even this podcast and the testament to it, is the idea of, so I shared with you that I felt lost for many, many years. I got to that point. And so where does that lost feeling come from? Well, in my mind, in my personal journey, that came from identity. So I lacked deep identity. I think of tribes, and I think if we keep it really simple, I think of a tribe back in the day, let's just say pagan times. And let's just say for shits and giggles, let's just say Nordic or Viking times.
100%.
Is that within the tribe, you had an identity, and that identity was not only ancestral, in terms of your family, your lineage within the tribe that you come from, but also your identity in terms of how you fit into a community, because they're all productive communities like beehives. You're a hunter-gatherer, you're a blacksmith, you're somebody that builds longhouses, you're somebody that builds long ships, whatever it might be, right? You're a leader, you're a teacher, you're a philosopher, you're a nurturer. And so, there's a deep sense of identity, and it's really black and white that comes with that. And so identity, which is adhered to something bigger than yourself. So identity in the context of tribe. And when you have that, then you've got the perfect foundation for understanding how you can be part of something that's bigger than yourself. And so then if we come to me and my journeys and this sort of realization, and this is a long way of answering your question, my brother,
that's great.
Is the lost feeling was because I didn't have a clear view of identity, and I certainly didn't have a tribe. I know that everybody has their story, but my own choices as a human, as a young man and an adult, wasn't interested in religion of any kind. So completely agnostic to all of that. And I wasn't really part of any kind of spiritual communities or anything like that either. And they're kind of go-tos, if you like, if you think of tribe in the modern sense. And so I have, through a lot of deep and I believe quite brave introspective personal work, I've found my identity or rediscovered who I am. And in doing so, I now understand then what tribe I am part of. And I have some choices around that for sure, because we're not in pagan times, and it's not really simple. But I can seek out a tribe where that identity is of most value. The analogy of, let's just say I'm the blacksmith who's gone to a village that doesn't have one, right? And I can make that village better as the result. And so I think that a lot of my friends that I think of, and a lot of people, even perhaps listening to this, it's one thing to kind of figure out what your purpose is and what your superpowers are and what your magic is, and high five yourself and do whatever spiritual enlightenment journeys you want to do. But you got to figure out why you're here and what you're doing. And I think it's my personal story is I just have found it incredibly difficult to do that without understanding my identity and how I fit into a tribe for greater value. They're all interwoven, but without that, I think it's substantially more difficult, or at the very least, you come up with a purpose, but you're not quite sure. So there's that element of doubt because there's nothing to anchor it to.
So true. So true. And I love this concept of identity, right? Because so often, and even like tying it back into, let's say, ancient times or paganistic, because I feel like history does leave clues, and it leaves clues for us. Although is everything, let's say, relevant to today? Maybe not, as you said, because times have shifted. But I suppose human nature at its core is still so hardwired from the hunter-gatherer times. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's quite counterintuitive to even the way us as men operate, that our purpose is inwards and not outwards, not external, which is so interesting. And I suppose really tying in with some people, obviously it takes getting to that point of, trying so many things outside until they finally realize, oh, maybe I have to look inside. And I feel like you said one thing really, really powerful there, because I really resonate with that myself, was that you were actually remembering who you were. It wasn't that you were like understanding who you were, but you were remembering like the character that you're here to play. And I know for me personally, like I've resonated with that so much because let's say on the journeys, within our community, that personally I've been on, it's always been like an epiphany or like a remembering of who I was, or who I am.
100%.
Yeah. And then I feel like it's from that standpoint, you can connect the dots backwards to see, oh, you've left yourself threads of like consistent themes. Like for yourself, it was speaking truth, or leadership and these sort of qualities which stem through to where you are now and the space you're in. So yeah, it's almost like as if you've left a roadmap inside yourself that merely you just have to go inside and understand that. And then I feel like and I feel like as you're saying, naturally then you'll attract the tribe, because it's interesting now, isn't it? It's like when you have that awareness of yourself and more awareness of yourself, you'll have more awareness of the people that you're going to surround yourself with.
That's what I was saying before about it. It gives you much more focus on how to apply purpose and value. You don't have to guess too much. It should be fairly obvious. And I kind of love what you said just then there too, because in terms of remembering what have you, I mean, bottom line is all of us at some stage, all of us without exception, had tribe, had identity. It's just a lot of us have lost that. And so it's just a case of remembering. And of course, from an ancestral perspective, sometimes and I know particularly for my ancestry and family lineage, tribe and identity was lost some 1100, 1200 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's an echo of I guess, generations of ancestors who weren't quite sure anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it really stems on to here, and I suppose with such a connected world, and I love social media, don't get me wrong, I feel like there's so much power in it. But let's say for the next generation, with such easy access to connection, and there's often that feeling of lack of connection, lack of authentic connection.
Yeah.
And I know for me personally, like the community that we're a part of and growing up, just as social media and all that was coming through, like it's been so paramount for me. Even like I moved overseas when I was a kid, when I was 6, like away from my family in Ireland, and like we had no other family here, you know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
wasn't really until we found, our current community that I felt at home. And it's so important as well, even for children growing up. They say it takes a tribe to raise children as much as it does for
100%.
parents. And I suppose in many ways we're all still children,
Mm-hmm.
in just big suits. So I feel that's an aspect. And I know Tim Dwyer talks about this as well, who's another amazing mind within our community. And he talks about that the next age will be the age of community and of teamwork. And that will be, we'll see that breeding through a lot. And
Yeah, I believe that too.
yeah.
I mean, it's interesting your perspective, and it's a beautiful perspective given sort of like your age group, I suppose, is that um, it it is possible to make connections using technology for sure. But I feel that what we lose is the fact that it's really just a means in which to make a connection,
Mm,
and it's a means of communication, but just one of the means. In terms of creating meaningful connection, then there needs to be something else, even if it's to augment what you're doing. Um, and the irony of that sort of point you made about going to Ireland and then you sort of came here and now sort of feel like you belong a bit more is that if you're in what you might call the obvious tribe, maybe it's family, and all of those family members are lost, then that's no tribe.
mm,
That's a disaggregated group of people who are wandering around not realizing they are a tribe.
yeah.
And so, how can you fit in with that? Now, of course, you could show leadership and you could gather them around and put a stake down and say, right, we're going to make a tribe of this thing.
Mm,
Or I think the modern equivalent for me, and sort of back on me and you meeting and the beautiful community we're part of, is that when you have that focus, when you have that identity, and you're far more tuned into tribe, it kind of almost comes back to what I said before, and that is, well, now I know I'm a blacksmith, and I can't see an obvious tribe, so I'm gonna go to where there's a tribe where they need a blacksmith,
mm.
or I'm going to go to a tribe of blacksmiths that are looking for tribes that need blacksmiths. And so I think that the tribe has to have that sort of overall, and this is probably a logical and throwaway comment, the tribe itself needs to have that sort of overall collective objective, and
Yes.
that needs to be on point with where you're at, to state the
Yeah.
obvious, because if you're contributing for reasons beyond yourself and for whatever deity or spiritual construct that you use to guide yourself, then you need to feel like you're contributing to some kind of an outcome that's common amongst others. And I think that's why our beautiful little community works, because like-minded, interested in heading in the same direction, and there to help others and interested in helping each other out. Well, that's a frigging tribe, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%. And a beautiful like team network, that you can rely on. And as you were saying there, like different skills, and there's different unique assets, as you would say, that we bring forward. And I
Yeah.
suppose,
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to jump in and just say, I do work with people around helping them find purpose and sort of breakthrough thinking. And the irony there is that, there's a Venn diagram that you can do to sort of help sort of with the thought process. And in that Venn diagram is not only understanding what your value is as a human, like what's your special stuff, but how that's valuable to others. And so it's no good unless you understand how it's valuable to others. So then you look back in on the tribe point, right? It's like it has to be valuable to a collective group or tribe of people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've hit the jackpot, right?
100%, because it's also then from there, I feel, as you're saying, as you add more value to the people around you, then it reflects back. And then obviously then it comes to situations where you trade together. And then that can be really building a network for you to live out your unique or divine mission. And I suppose touching on divine mission there as well, which I feel personally is very connected to serving something greater than ourselves.
Yes.
Source, whatever you want to call it, source, God, the universe, Jimmy down the road, whatever that is to you, you know what I mean? As a man today, how important is that spiritual connection?
Oh man, that's a good question, isn't it? I think it's more important than ever, man. Spirituality, and I can only come at it, of course, my brother, from my viewpoint, and having been around since the 70s as a child, spirituality was really something I didn't really know much about. My parents didn't really it wasn't something that was taught in schools or at home. The best that I got, though, in terms of spirituality was really being part of this beautiful Polynesian culture. And so the stuff I was exposed to, which ironically was properly tribal, there was that tribal spirituality that came with beliefs and customs and certain ways of behaving and living, etc. So that's about as close as it got. And much like a lot of people as well, it's like, religion was put upon me, but it didn't personally resonate that much for me. So there's a long way going about saying that I didn't really understand what spirituality was until much later in my life. And then the more I have learned about it and then started to determine how it can assist me in my life, the more I realize how profoundly friggin' valuable it is. Because if you think of where I started with my share, it was, bounce around a bit, sort of on autopilot to an extent, trying to find purpose, direction, all the rest of it, ultimately realizing I was lost and then needing to remember identity and then get back to tribe. So it's I've lost my train of thought there, my brother. I was kind of at a fork in the road.
No, you're on a mad flow. We were touching base, and I feel like there's so many awesome points there. Touching base on, like, from your perspective, how important is it for a man today to, I guess, have that spiritual connection?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was going to go off on a tangent, but back on point with your question, I think it is a vital ingredient in a man living his best life. Not only does it encourage things, I guess what I was trying to say before, man, not only does it encourage, I should say, men to explore things about themselves that aren't normally encouraged, whether it's vulnerability, whether it's sharing esoteric, existential type things. It, in my mind, is almost like a pillar, if you like, a pillar to success for males and females, but especially males. I kind of feel like we're all kind of, as a generalization, indoctrinated into this idea that it's not valuable. And it's like, what the hell? It's possibly the thing we should start with, because it makes everything else amplified so much better, right? Whether it's purpose, which I was trying to say before, or whether it's just being a better human, whether it's being a better male, like I kind of laugh a little bit, like I do have done, as I said, I do work with people, and I do know quite a bit about psychology and psychological constructs and neuroscience, etc. This idea that we sometimes get, even just sort of making the point around alpha males, and it'll be easy to fall into the bullshit trap that an alpha male is some 6'5" Adonis with a square jaw and gets around just, treating women a particular stereotypical way and being this sort of, uber masculine type unit. And that construct is completely bullshit. If you want to look up what an alpha male is, it's not that. They're actually not alpha males. Alpha males are people who are far more rounded. They're able to think strategically. They're able to embrace their feminine side. They're able to embrace existential thought, spirituality, all of that. So that's a roundabout way of saying that if you want to strive to being the best male and you want to be an alpha male, then if you don't have spirituality in there, sorry, man, you're a beta.
100%, you know, and it is such like a concept that, you know, I talk about so much too. And I love that you brought that in because, you know, even the construct of that, you know, one man is better than the other is like that concept of separation, you know,
Yeah.
which is really interesting, you know, and it's so hardwired within us as men, you know, and I feel like that connection to something greater, as you're saying, really allows you to see that everyone is just a reflection of yourself, you know, so there is no like higher or lower, like it's all aspects of yourself.
I
You
love
know?
that.
Yeah, and I feel like that really shatters those concepts completely because it's like the ego constructs that let's say through primal times have really come through, but as we're seeing today, like a lot of those constructs are really falling away. And I love it's like you're balancing out. Let's say the healthy masculinity, as I like to say, is like having the capacity to be both strong but also gentle. You know, it doesn't mean that you lose those that beautiful aggression and assertiveness and leadership qualities that we all seek to embody, but it also means that, you know, you can also embody the capacity, as you said, to be emotional, to be vulnerable, to you know, to speak openly about how you're feeling, and to display that in front of other males, or you know, your family as well.
Oh, I mean, even on family, like just jumping in there, brother, I was just as you said that, I sort of think of, you know, like if you're able to live your life a bit more like that as a male. I mean, I'm a proud father, as I said, of two little girls. I can teach them so much more and have impart so much more humble value as a parent on young females by being the kind of male and the, you know, to use, I guess, the well-worn analogy, the role model of what healthy, productive, balanced maleness looks like. Because if you're too far away over on the other end of the stereotypical spectrum and back on my quip around alpha, not so much, but operate that way and the ego's there, then what do you have to teach females?
Yeah.
It certainly, in my mind, isn't the right kind of message. And that's just my view, of course. People may disagree with me, but I want my little girls to grow up to be independent, free-thinking, strong females that don't need to rely on a male, but see a male as an equal partner that has plenty of value to help them be the best they can be if they choose that. And if they choose, you know, if they turn out to be that particular preference in terms of sexuality, of course. But bottom line is, stripping it back, they are able to identify with and participate in healthy female to male relationships.
Yes.
And then your earlier point, of course, is the male to male relationships. Isn't it ridiculous how we all compete with each other? You know, it's divisive, it's non-productive. You know, we started some of the conversation earlier, and this was about tribe and collective outcome, man. Well, it's no good if it's every man for himself.
100%. 100%. And aren't we like all leaders in our own right, you know, and in different aspects, as you're saying? And it's beautiful what you're saying. I'd love to ask too as well, what do you feel like having two daughters has taught you about, say, the world of the feminine, and in terms of like how much more respect have you had for that and understanding?
I got to be careful here, man. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I friggin' love it.
Yeah.
I don't have any perspective, of course. I mean, sometimes, and I wondered whether you were going to ask the question. Sometimes people do ask in this situation. That is, you know, as compared to perhaps if you'd had boys. Well, I don't know. I don't have boys, and
No,
don't care,
fine.
and I'm not likely to have any. No, it's beautiful. I'm the only male in the home. I mean, even the pets are female, bless them. And my mother-in-law occasionally comes to stay as well. So it is a male in a house of females. The lessons that they have to teach me are I think, around the immense strength that females have that is really multifaceted. I think that when you spend time with females, especially ones that, I love to bits, they're my family, they can not only help you understand at a base level as a male how to understand having better relationships with them and to demystify some of the things that, and that's why I kind of smiled a bit at the beginning of this, because some of it does remain a mystery to me, my brother.
Yeah.
Being with my beautiful wife, for example, for 26 years, and there are parts of her that it's still a mystery, but maybe that's why we're still together, right?
100%.
It's life is about being interesting, not boring.
Yeah.
Look, back on your question. Yeah, for me, it's about being able to relate to females. I'm always learning about that and learning how to be better at that. But the strength thing is the thing which stands out for me, and how, I guess, if we look at, and especially for brothers that might be listening to this, and we look at the male angle, how females as well, like the three females in my house, how they support each other as females. And it's completely different to us blokes, man. Like it's the empathetic, it's the emotional, it's the non-solution based support. It's the cuddles, it's the kisses. And so I'm the honorary female in the house because they treat me the same way.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful thing because I see that there's a different way that I can interact in that regard as well. And it's not something, back on the way we're conditioned sometimes as males, that would have come naturally to me until I was in a house full of females. So I watch in awe sometimes, man, when I'm not interacting with it, as to the strength they have, and then how they deal with their shit and how they support each other. And I think there's a huge amount to be learned from that, from any brother that's not sort of had the fortune of being in the company of females in a non-toxic way. I mean, kind of like in a loving and supportive way. And the irony with it as well, back on strength, is that I think of myself, maybe the last part of what I'd say about it is that because I have been with my beautiful wife for so long, since I was younger than you, she's been through everything with me, and she has truly been the strength beneath my wings at times when I've needed it. And so I feel as a male I've had to be the one to lead and be strong and carry everybody. But there's only one human on the planet that's there, man, when I'm running out of gas, or if I'm, having a tough time, or if I need to drop the baggage or deal with things in a different way. And when that happens, I feel how friggin' strong she is, man.
Yeah.
And then the irony is, just rounding this whole point out, is that, and the lesson there for brothers is, stand alongside your females, man. Interlock your arms and hearts, man, because like they are just as strong, if not stronger than us in some respects.
Yes.
The strength angle, it's a big one, man. There's no such thing as men being stronger than females, or no such thing as men needing to just always take on that sort of front and forward role. Together you're better, basically. Whatever the relationship is, sister, niece, auntie, friend, girlfriend, whatever.
It's so true, man, because, I grew up with a sister. I have an older brother as well. But myself and my sister are so close. And there's been so many parts of my life where she's been an awesome pillar of strength in such a different way, to say, like, myself, or even then my mom also, and, past girlfriends that I had too, they were so strong in their own right. And that doesn't have to, I love what you're saying there, because it doesn't have to take away from, and it doesn't at all take away from your strength. And it completely blows out of proportion the connotations that, let's say, that masculine or feminine, one or the other is better than the other. None is better than the other, and they're both equally as strong in their own right. They're just different energies.
100%.
And we both need them for different periods of life. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think of, listening to your brother, I kind of think of a lot of the female strength that I've observed in my life has been what I call quiet strength. It's that granite-based foundation strength. It's the quiet support. It's the solid as a rock support. It's the solid fallback. Hands to catch you. and then when a female puts her mind to something, look in awe, man. I mean, I happen to have been grateful to have been at the birth of both the two girls, and being there. And my beautiful wife is, she's Germanic by origin, so she is a barbarian shield maiden for sure. She gave birth to both my babies without any pain relief, no nothing, man, just old school in the hospital. And as a male, I'm standing there in absolute awe, man, absolute awe. So you want to talk about strength, talk to any female about giving birth to children, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
And one sight that reminds me so well of beautiful Raquel is like, I mean, I went around your place the other week and I was staying around and she's got a broken foot, like
yeah.
and she's still going around with her crutches, like maybe
Yeah, that's it, eh?
it's okay, which I feel like is such an epitome of what you're saying. Like, it doesn't matter if she has a broken foot, like, you know, she's every right to just sit there and look after herself, but she still is going on like a Trojan, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
It's that quiet strength.
yeah.
I'm smiling because the irony is, as we talk about males and females, is that males love to proclaim their strength.
Yes.
It's the friggin' Thor crap. You know, it's like, look how strong I am. Look how awesome I am. I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm showing leadership here and brothers are following me there. Females are just getting on with it.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, we're speaking of sweeping generalizations, but
yes.
I'm making a point really by saying that. But the more of the quiet strength, I suppose.
That's it, because that's actually more security in yourself, that quiet confidence, you know. 100%. That's beautiful, man. And I suppose I'd love to ask you, because I feel like we're coming towards the close here and we've covered a myriad amount of topics, and I know we could go so much deeper, and obviously we'll have to jump on again to go even deeper.
Yeah, I'm happy to,
because there's a whole spiritual journey as well that I'd love us to delve into. But I love asking this question. So if say, for example, there was, and we might have asked it similar before, but let's say a younger version of yourself, or if you could go back to, say, like the 20, 25, 30-year-old version of yourself, what would be like the golden nuggets that you would share with that version of yourself?
Oh man, that's a good one, eh? Save the best to last. What would I say? I would say, certainly in the beginning. So if I was to think of myself from early 20s, so we'll just sort of focus on that, I guess, early manhood. I would say, don't be in a hurry to rush down the path of life.
Yeah.
At that point in my life, I had a lot of time and not much risk attached to getting things wrong, to just taking stock of where I ultimately wanted to head. And it's a hard one, because when you're young, you don't give a shit. And when you're older, you realize you should have. But I think what I'm trying to say is, certainly, man, I've been thinking lately that it would be awesome to have been exposed to spirituality properly at that age. Awesome, man. It would have been a game changer. I'm very proud of you, my brother. Yeah, you know, I see you and I think, wow, man, wow. So, and we come back to what I said before around my belief as to how important it is, because the irony by doing that, then a few high risk experiments, I suppose, with your journey in life early, because you can, coupled with spirituality and perhaps even spiritual enlightenment. Wow, man. It would save a lot of time and hassle, maybe. Yeah. And I say maybe because, as you know, my brother as well, as a part of that also is healing trauma you don't realize you have.
Yeah.
Or healing barriers and constraints that you don't realize have been given to you.
Yes.
Or done to you or created for you. And so the spirituality is the key thing, as I would say. Introduce my younger brother self to that. Slow down, but take high risk plays, have some fun, enjoy life, follow the heart more rather than I've got to get a job, I've got to start saving my money, and I've got to get the career underway. Not when you're in your early 20s, man. I mean, far out. But this was the environment that I came from.
Yeah.
You can F it all up if you need to. I was jealous of a friend in my 20s who actually, which is kind of amusing, he went and spent a year in India at a commune called Poo Poo. I freaking love it. Freaking love it.
Enlightened Poo Poo.
Yeah, that's it. Now, he may or may not have been going because it was a free love commune, and I don't know whether they still have those things anymore, but in those days they did. But he came back a completely changed dude, and I thought, wow. But still, the inner me was going, nah, but I've got to crack on, save the money, get the career going, yada, yada, yada. So, they're the two key things, I suppose, for me. And then maybe the last one, which is a beautiful point that we've covered, and not by chance, on this podcast, and that is tribe and community.
Yeah.
At that point, I was staunchly the lone wolf. I thought there was a way I was supposed to do things as a male, and leave the home and go and find my wolf pack.
Yeah.
No, man. I know I mean beyond close friends. I mean being part of something that's really quite special, and the tribe thing. So it's the tribe thing. It's taking stock of where you are, slowing down, taking high risk plays, having fun first, and then exploring spirituality as a guide for all of that. Are probably the key things that I would say, my brother.
Absolute bangers, and I definitely took a few of those myself because I'm still within that age range of 20s, and I can still resonate with trying to go so fast, and that was a big breakthrough I had in the last year, is actually like slowing down to speed up.
I saw that, my brother, and I was proud of you. There's great power that comes with that. If we think of high performing individuals, actually, this is a great point. And this is some of the work that I sometimes do with people. In fact, I talk about these things with them to help break their paradigms. High performing people, and I'm talking high performing, go out there and Google it, man. It's like, it's the billionaires, it's the Olympic gold medalists, it's the high flying entrepreneurs, it's whatever, right? The people that are really acing it in their space. Without exception, there are two things. One is tribe. So now, whether that's their own little tribe, of course, that helps them get to where they want to be, even the Elon Musks of the world have people around them that they seek counsel, or provide spirituality guidance or coaching or mindset, all that stuff, right? So that's one key point, man. That is a unilateral quality of a high-performing person who wants to reach results in their life. The other one is actually making time for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I have found this out in all kinds of guises. One of my business enterprises, I was advising executives of listed companies. And it always fascinated me that if you take a CEO of a large company, like one of them was a CEO of a company, a global company, and he had 30,000 people reporting to him. Man, just get your head around that for a minute.
Yeah.
And he still had time to go to the gym, to go to the beach, to have a day off every Friday and meditate and do whatever he needed to do, eat well, whatever. He seemed to have all the time in the world. And I've seen this pattern with those types of people, is that the rest of us would be stressed out beyond imagination on the burden that comes with fitting it all in. And so therefore we leave the bit that's ourselves, and then we burn out, and all the other bullshit negative manifestations of that. Whereas those people have worked out that the opposite, and it is almost always about the counterlogical truth, by the way, is that it's counterlogical. In order to do less, but to honor yourself more, means you are more productive in aggregate, more fulfilled, and more happy. And so, yeah, that point that you just shared, man, at a young age, it actually relates to all ages, man. It's don't be in too much of a hurry with your shit, because you're not going to be getting to your destination as quickly as if you slow down a bit. And that's a bit of that screws with your head, but that's a profound life choice that a life truth that I've come across myself.
And I love that, because, you know, especially, let's say a lot of dudes will resonate with this podcast and will be like myself, who are super interested in high performing and, you know, and doing something with your life. And yeah, it's so beautiful to hear that, even from someone like yourself who has lived such a colorful life. And because, yeah, it's still like it's still counterintuitive, and I don't feel there's enough people, let's say, with your experience, even broadcasting that, you know what I mean? So
I know, man.
I was still running that pattern. And it's so funny, isn't it? Because it comes down to, when you do look after yourself and you have those boundaries, it actually creates more space for like the aligned people to work with you, or for your business.
Oh man, 100%.
So interesting, because it's like, it's so counterintuitive.
Even even giving yourself space, like, I'm a strategic thinker, giving yourself space to strategically think without the noise. You can't do that, man, if you're juggling.
Yeah.
You have to actually create space for it, to your point. And then the other, as a juxtaposition to that, the other point within that around high risk, fun-based experiments, you know, like, you know, go try the friggin' crazy career thing and go full tilt, with almost all care and no responsibility, right? If it fails, it fails. Who gives a shit? Go start the business and lose your money, man, because you can. It all gets a hell of a lot more complicated much further down the road. If you're in a rush to get to where you think is the first base camp of Everest, I use the Everest analogy with a lot of people I speak to. You're in a rush to get to base camp, man. It's like, well, hang on a second, careful what you wish for, because the stakes are now significantly higher. You're now committed, and mistakes or taking the wrong path at that point have much higher consequences, right? Fine if you're built for that and are capable of being resilient, but why? It was to come back to have a good hard crack right at the beginning, right? As opposed to being in too much of a hurry to get to where you need to get to.
Definitely. And that really, you know, I remember when I was around your place, you said something to me, and it really actually shifted my perspective at that point in time, because, like, for myself, I invested a lot in myself from such an early age, and it has in the past put financial constraints on myself, let's say. But it was really beautiful, because you framed it in a way that, and I understood this kind of conceptually, but there was a part of me that was still kind of like, let's say, beating myself over the head about it, right? And then the way you framed it really instilled, and I suppose I really felt like, oh yeah, it was such a valuable education, you know, that from a young age, like, I will reap the rewards in the long term. You know, it's like what you're saying, kind of going all guns blazing with high risk. And then, you know, if at the moment it doesn't always work out the way you'd hoped it would, but the lessons, I know for me, the lessons I've received from this period of time, it's like pressure creates diamonds, you know. It's like it's forged lessons and skills that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Well, you come back to, if you have a red hot go at your age, and, you know, like, I mean, I think of the entrepreneurial construct, and certainly true of me. I mean, I've started many businesses in different countries over the years. It's like most of them have failed, man.
Yeah.
Get used to it, brother. So if you can fail fast, fall forward, as they say, and do that a lot really early, far out, man. Look out when you hit your straps, far out. You know, these are, it's beyond gold. So you know, to your analogy, you've actually sort of created those diamonds really early in the piece. That, you know, that kind of puts you in good stead, I suppose. And, you know, like, every now and again, I kind of tuned off Gary Vee a little bit these days. I used to listen to a bit of Gary Vee. I kind of liked what he had to say. Kind of resonates a lot with where way my mind works. And but one thing I do remember him saying about all of this is, you're not at the really young age, you're not supposed to know it all either.
Yeah.
So this bullshit idea that you've got to try to crack the nut, no, man, no, it'll present itself to you if you just crack on and experiment, basically, and take the approach that we've said. I mean, maybe last thing I'd say about it, and maybe it shaped my colourful life and my trajectory beyond sort of idiosyncratic personality, is that my parents were foreigners. So I grew up in NZ, but my parents are English, and my father lived for many years in Africa as a young man, and my mother lived in France on and off as well. And so they were worldly people. And when I finished university, I left home before that. I kind of paid for and educated myself. I'm back on the lone wolf thing. I popped out of that, and as soon as I popped out of higher education with a degree, I went, shit, I'm now super poor, man, super poor. I've got to get myself on that sort of those train tracks, the narrative. I've got to get the career going. Got to buy a good car. If I get a good car, I'll get a good girlfriend. All that crap, right?
Yeah.
And then if I'm lucky, I'll get a promotion, and then I can save up for a house. Yeah. Far out, man. They're all traps at an early age for a start, right? They're proper traps. But what they encouraged me to do, even though I had already left home, I'd already been gone for 4 years, I graduated, and they said, man, we're so proud of you. I was the first university educated person in my family, so they were super proud. I was proud of myself. We're really proud of you, son, but you've only got half an education. What do you mean? And they went, you got to travel. You got to travel, man. It's going to open your heart, your mind, and your perspective. And then you have an education. Now, I'm not advocating everybody's got to do that. I'm not saying that that's literally true.
Of course.
But in my case, the point being, what we're talking about is that in my very early years, they encouraged me to, if I'm going to do the career thing and all the rest of it, at least do that in a way where I'm getting exposed to things that are really exciting to do when you're that age, with people my age doing it. So I'm really eternally grateful, man. That pattern never ceased for me. So 35 friggin' countries later, I've lived in 4 different countries. It creates me in part who I am, my perspective, and then my value in the tribe, right?
Yeah. Because there's something to be said, isn't it, for that experiential knowledge? It's like that book knowledge is beautiful in its own right, but there is something to be said for that experiential knowledge. And I feel like that really is a great, like, cherry on top. And I feel it's really rung true for even your truth that you've spoken through today, is that it's to experience as much as you can, because it's in the experience. You don't know unless you actually walk the path, unless you actually dip your feet into the pool.
The destination, this is one of the things I've had to learn the hard way, that you can sit there, man, and pontificate on what the destination looks like and whatever friggin' plans up the wazoo and courses and books and all the rest of it in order to get you there. But often there's no substitute with having the intent related to the destination and then starting to walk that path, brother, because it all reveals itself in the way it should do. And I know you know that at a deep level as well, right?
Oh, bro. Well, man, I just want to say what I'll do, because let's say for someone who would maybe love to contact you, maybe even for the work that you do, where can they go to find you?
Probably the best bet is to just contact me via email. I am going to have more of an online presence soon, but I've actually operated under the radar because it's been word of mouth.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you normally post these things, brother, but I'm happy for you to sort of put my contact details at the bottom of the podcast.
Beautiful.
Does that work best?
Happy to do that.
Cool.
Do that. So, man, I just want to say, so guys, if you want to find Leigh, I will pop that down below. You'll find that down below. From my personal perspective, Tia, it's so great to jump on here. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful wisdom. And very grateful to have a brother like yourself on the path.
Oh, man, ditto my brother Fjord. Ragnar-san. Love
Yeah,
your work.
again.
Yeah, that's it. No, I've really enjoyed it, man, and I'm grateful that you thought of me, man. It's awesome. Loved it.
Beautiful. Awesome stuff. Well, guys, go and take it easy. Make sure to apply any golden nuggets that you've got here today. Write it down so you can remember, and we'll see you again for the next one. Peace out.